Today we're going to be looking at geographic isolation and how different areas can have different factors on similar species, leading to the traits of new species. Let's take a look first at how certain environments can lead to different characteristics in animals. Geographic isolation. Why does geography matter? Different environments have different abiotic factors. Example, the Arctic has colder temps than the tropics. Different environments have different factors that apply and push upon the species. For example, the Arctic has extremely cold temperatures and very little water, whereas the tropics are very warm and have plenty of water. Because there are different abiotic factors, natural selection pushes differently on different organisms. Because there are different abiotic factors, natural selection pushes differently on organisms in an area. For example, species in the Arctic have thick fat layers, and the tropics are lean. Because the Arctic is so cold, animals that live there typically have a very thick layer to keep them warm in the harsh winters. Compare this to organisms who live in the warmer climates, they wouldn't last very long with a thick coat as they'd be too hot. Instead, they are lean, allowing for moisture to be able to pass freely and not overheat. What is geographic isolation? Geographic isolation is when a population of organisms is split, either by nature or migration. In geographic isolation, a population of organisms is split either by nature or through migration. This can be either due to a new mountain range forming or a river separating the two populations. Now that they are separate, abiotic factors will work differently on the organisms. The key component is that the two groups cannot interbreed. Geographic isolation is characterized by the fact that the organisms cannot interbreed, thus leading to the distinguished traits not being shared between the populations. As time changes, so does the abiotic characteristics of each community. Over time, the abiotic characteristics will change, such as a tide pool being flooded in or ice caps melting. Because of this, the abiotic factors also change, and thus change natural selection's pressure on the organisms present. Natural selection will act differently on each species group, leads to different traits being favored. As the abiotic characteristics change, the pressures apply differently onto organisms. For example, areas becoming desert have an increased amount of water loss. Organisms with favorable traits may exemplify and flourish, while organisms from the original population who don't have the traits may die. Eventually, the species changes so much that you have a new species. One example of this is the elephant. Elephants are African elephants and Indian elephants. They were separated some time ago in a continental drift. The organisms can no longer interbreed, thus creating two separate species of elephants. Examples of geographic isolation. Bears. Earliest bear ancestors were found in Asia. As groups migrated or were separated by earthquakes or rivers, they became separated. The earliest bear species was somewhat of a cross between a dog and a bear. Over time, it changed its features due to its traits and became more bear-like. Its migratory pattern, however, allowed it to spread over vast distances, crossing most of the globe. Across the land bridge from Asia to America. The Bering Strait is part of the world with that small area between Alaska and Russia. During the times of the Ice Age, it was a solid landmass allowing organisms to pass freely from Russia to Asia. It is hypothesized that the bears followed this pattern, crossed over the land bridge, and into the new world of America and South America. However, as the ice began to recede, the land bridge melted, thus isolating the bears. When the land bridge melted, the groups became so spread out, geographic isolation kicked in. For example, polar bears were selected for the right coat, grizzlies for size, and pandas for diet, etc. Diversity of bear species from Kodiak, black, brown, and grizzly is characteristic of geographic isolation. While they may share a lot of similar characteristics, the species can no longer interbreed. This is due to the different pressures supplied by each different region. So that's geographic isolation. It factors into a lot of species that we see today, and we'll also see evidence of it in other organisms. Something to consider, humans are also susceptible to geographic isolation. Think about what traits occurred in humans that led from geographic isolation. We'll discuss it tomorrow. Have a good one.